Revere. Listen, my children, you shall hear the midnight ride of Paul Revere. That is the beginning of a famous poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow that helped to make Paul Revere famous among school children. But who was Paul Revere? What did he do in his life besides his famous midnight ride? And why was he riding in the middle of the night anyway? Paul Revere lived in Boston, Massachusetts during colonial times. He was the son of a silversmith, also named Paul Revere. As a boy, Paul helped his father by delivering merchandise to his father's customers, many of whom were Tories. Tories were people who were loyal to the British Crown. Once, when Paul was taking one of his father's products to one of his customers, Paul was stopped by a strange sailor. Paul was almost kidnapped, but he was able to run away. On the same trip, he was also chased by a peddler in a dark alley, but he was able to escape. Finally, some women stopped him and tried to barter the goods away from him, but he was able to break free and deliver the merchandise to the customer. Paul learned that it could be dangerous delivering goods around Boston at the time, especially in the area around the war. Even as a boy, Paul was a patriot and disliked King George. Once, Paul wrote a poem making fun of the king. It blew out of Paul's pocket when he was walking in Boston. It was picked up by a Tory who captured Paul and put him on board a ship bound for England. Luckily for Paul, a patriot who was on board the ship untied him so that he was able to jump off the ship and escape to shore, avoiding possible imprisonment. When Paul grew up, he became a silversmith like his father, but he also became a faithful patriot. He was part of a group of people who wanted to break free from King George. They were called the Sons of Liberty. This group was responsible for the Boston Tea Party, which destroyed British tea by dumping it into Boston Harbor. They did this because King George had placed an excessive tax on tea and they wanted to protest the tax. Now, what about that midnight ride? The purpose of Paul Revere's ride was to alert the countryside that British troops were coming to Lexington and Concord to destroy Patriot supplies and ammunition. On the night of the famous midnight ride, Paul waited for a signal from the Old North Church's steeple. One light meant that the British troops were coming by land, and two lights meant that the British troops were coming by sea. The Minutemen arrived just in time to defend Lexington and Concord from the British. The end of Longfellow's poem goes like this. Struck up by a steed, flying fearless and fleet, that was all, and yet through the gloom and the light, the fate of the nation was riding that night. If Paul had not alerted the countryside about the British attack, the Patriot would have lost many supplies and ammunition. That is why Longfellow chose Paul Revere as a subject for his famous poem. Any questions?
Wow, awesome. That is awesome. One of the things you did, that's one of the best reports all year in terms of your voice projecting loud. Did you guys notice how loud his voice went?
Yeah.
Also, you spoke clear so that you weren't mumbling. And also, something you did a great job of is that even though you were reading your paper, you kept looking up. And sometimes if you're reading a paper, it's tempting to just do like this and stare straight down. And you did a very good job of going back and forth, looking up while you were reading from the paper. So questions?
Yes. What urged you to choose him? It's an interesting subject.
What in particular was interesting to you?
I read 2 books. About him today.
Mark? What number of lanterns did it?
He saw 2 lanterns.
Oh.
Yes, Megan?
How old was Longfellow when he wrote his poem?
No idea.
Philip? What was the name of the church who lit the lantern?
Old North Churches.
Old North Church.
I went there on our orientation.
One more question. One more question. Okay, Mark.
Now, I've been to Paul Revere's house and church, and they let you walk along the place that Paul Revere had written across. It was really cool.
Did you see any of the silver things that he makes? Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to stick the report right here. Thank you. Great job. Helen.